Podcast, episode 15. Just want to say thank you to everybody for sticking with us and listening to the podcast or watching the podcast if you watch it on YouTube or and just supporting us in general. It's been really awesome to get to know everybody and see the interaction between everybody and it's just been a really fun experience so far. We had a great time with Alex last week. We'll definitely be having her on again. So, how have you been, Pops?
Doing well, doing well. A lot of life still happening, which is fine. Let's see. Highlights for the week is getting a lot of rest. 2 times this week I've slept until about 6 o'clock, which is very unusual.
Whew,
I know.
that's late for you.
Yeah, it is. I'm to start doing the cold showers, the cold. I'm trying to find a plunge bucket, and then I'll start doing that too. Starting to get this old body moving again. But yeah, it's been an okay week. Nothing too exciting.
Nothing too crazy.
Getting closer to coming up there and seeing you guys.
Yeah, the kids are so excited; they can't wait.
And got a
Like
chiropractic seminar this weekend,
ooh,
which
nice.
is after 30 years of doing them, they're kind of. Yeah, it's good. It's all good. Yeah, been outside with the pups, walking a lot since I'm not working.
Good. Some exercise.
Getting ready to try to
Those
figure out what
pups
we're gonna
keep
do
you
with the
busy.
llamas. Oh yeah, keep me busy. Jack's crazy. He just never slows. It's just so funny.
Yeah.
Like he's
the baby
Chet from
Santa Claus.
Santa
2.
Claus. It just that's what I hear every time I see him running by. Good. It's a good.
Wow. They're fun.
All right. So this week we're going to be discussing keeping score and its effect on self and relationships. This can apply to just about. I mean, like I said, it can apply to relationships. It can apply to even ourselves, and we'll walk through some of these things even more as we go along. But the main thing that I see with that is it creates a division, and it's very obvious that they do it in sports because they have divisions in sports. So the problem is changing your relationship either with yourself or with others into a competition. And
right.
Sometimes with self it could be a good thing because it's just you. It's hard to divide you. But when we get into certain situations where it becomes a negative competition or negative scoring more than positive scoring, then that could actually be very detrimental for the self also.
Oh yeah, for sure. I can definitely see that.
So I did some research. I was looking up some of this. The Keeping Score, I guess, is a Dan and Shay with Kelly Clarkson song. I listened to it a little bit, but it didn't hold my interest too much because I was in a hurry.
Dan and Shay song.
Oh, sorry. I was in a hurry to do some other things.
Like anything else than listen to a Dan and Shay song.
I didn't even know didn't even know who it was. I thought they were covering Kelly Clarkson. I don't know, but I guess she's in it with them.
That's one of Ash's favorite bands. And I don't, everybody out here who's listening, all 25 of you, I don't really have a problem with Dan and Shay. I'm being silly. This will be the one that goes viral, and Dan and Shay will be listening in.
We'll have to have them on. But yeah, I think a couple things that I really wanted to throw out is how much it divides in a relationship. And it doesn't just have to be husband, wife. It could be friends. It could be acquaintances, work people, work relationships. Because it does come down to in essence, tit for tat. You go from,
Right.
I did this, you should do this. We do this. I did this last week, you need to do it this week. And we put a lot of energy into holding on to that instead of just doing it. Um, if it's taking out the trash and you see that the trash isn't taken out, you could just take it out,
Right.
right? It's not like you need to go through the chalk markup. You have a chalkboard that just says little lines on it. It's like, okay, that's one for you. But that's kind of how silly it can get, but it can actually be very detrimental to a relationship.
It's almost like
Um,
giving each other gold stars, but the gold stars are every time you did something the other person was supposed to do.
It's the reverse
or-
gold star.
Yeah. Giving each other black stars.
So when we start keeping score in a relationship, it just turns it into a competition, and the competition actually can be, it's pretty severe. It can be pretty devastating, like I said, on a relationship. But the main thing that I see with that is how there's certain things I see that it divides. It decreases effective communication. I think it makes there's a feeling of an inequality, and it could be even superiority in some cases. Um, some people that through the research I was doing, when they feel like they're carrying more of the responsibility, they feel like they're being let down. And in some cases, and in a lot of cases, again, they start withholding things that they would normally do in a relationship. And then the communication becomes nonverbal. And then that's where it really, again, becomes very dangerous.
Right. Well, and I feel like sometimes the nonverbal stuff is worse than the verbal stuff. Especially when people start pulling away, and um, I think that's the divisive thing, because if you're always keeping score, or it's always, oh well, I did this or I did that. It's never going to end up with anything getting solved or anybody, quote unquote, winning, because you're both going to lose in the end. And that's not just for, like you said, not just for significant others. It's for whoever, any relationship that you're keeping score in. But like it's like an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. Like you're just going to keep going after each other. It's not going to help anything.
No, and it's like a big egg on a tire. It's just not going to go away until things change. Tires changed. Going to keep doing that. And I think a lot of times we get into the tolerators. We don't have very good boundaries to start with, which is part of it. But we also get into these tolerators that every time we see something, it creates that feeling again. And what I mean by that is, if in the relationship with myself, let's say, and we'll just kind of go there, because I'm currently living here alone. I'll be walking through the house and I'll see something that needs to be picked up, and I'll walk by it, and then I'll come back and I'll walk by it again. I'm like, man, why don't I just bend over and pick that up? And so at some point, I mean, I do, but it's just the noticing of how that thing, whatever it is, continues to return. So that feeling of like, just it's a second to bend over and pick it up. And then I get into you can get into some, you know, bad self-talk, or why don't you just do this? It's late, all these things.
Right.
But it's also can be in how you are with how you eat, or individually how you do your work, or connect with people, or withdraw from people. And I think that's when we're working with this man myth and trying to get people to understand, to communicate. It's even with yourself. Be truthful with yourself. Because there is a point where we need to actually hear the truth. Sometimes it may not be pretty, right? Because what we're doing is not good for us.
Right.
And in the internal dialogue, we can actually, suck it up, or what's going on? Why are you doing this? Just having these conversations with yourself or with coworkers or the spouse or brothers and sisters, that kind of thing. It's all in the relationship. Right. So
yeah,
keeping score with yourself is another way of really downing yourself.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I feel like you have to be able to effectively communicate with yourself before you're going to be able to effectively communicate with anybody else. And if you're going to keep score with yourself, then you're probably going to keep score with others. And it's just one of those things that it's a slippery slope to start keeping score, because then there's no end. There's no end in sight. It's just going to keep happening. Both of you are going to be unhappy, and it's going to, like you said, the egg on a tire. You got an egg on a tire. It's not going to go away. It's either going to explode or it's going to get, you're going to, like you said, you're going to change the tire. It's one of those two.
Now, a lot of, again, with self competition, again, because it's you can actually use it as a positive to motivate and to, because there's only one name on the scoreboard. If we keep it as positive, then we're okay. But if we start throwing the negatives in there, things that we don't do right, and those become heavier and heavier, then that's where it becomes detrimental. If we kept score, like say, because you want to measure goals or things that you want to have happen. So if you say, I'm going to do 5 pull-ups today and I'm going to do 10 next week, that's a positive way of looking at it, because it's not, you're keeping score, but you're also, like I said, you're the only one on the scoreboard, so it doesn't really matter.
Right. But I mean, also keeping score with each other, even or in a relationship with someone else, it could be detrimental even if you're trying to do it positive. With yourself, like you said, there's only you on the scoreboard, so there's no competition. But even if you and your spouse or you and a friend are like, oh, I did this nice thing for them, they haven't done any of this nice thing for me yet. It could still be divisive in that way. But it's just nice. It's good to see that others and yourself can be different. It's just different ways of handling things.
Yeah, and I think sometimes when the scores are being kept, there's not an agreement to it. There's assumptions. Right. So when we go into assumptions without communication, then like asking somebody, could you vacuum the floor, and the other way to look at it is somebody comes out and sees the floors are dirty. They're like, why didn't they vacuum the floor?
Right.
Because that doesn't, if you ask, that decreases the likelihood that you're going to have an out of exchange going on. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and it also, like we talked about the communication thing, that because at some point, and I've heard people in relationships that I work with, and I've heard coworkers and employees, and they're like, I just don't say anything more because it never does any good. Right.
Well, that's not going to help anything.
It doesn't. It increases it really increases the opposition, and it increases the distance between people. But it also, as we talk about boundaries, because boundaries would be like, okay, I've got the trash and I'll take it out this time, and or if you need to take it out earlier, just let me know, kind of thing. So if it's halfway full or something like that, it also has the other person say, "Listen, it's not full yet, but we did onions and garlic.
Right.
Right? Can you pop that out
Sometimes you
while
need
I'm
to.
right?" But just assuming that they're going to be able to smell that because it's annoying you,
Yeah.
and they're not taking it out, doesn't need to be it doesn't need to be a thing. You can just ask. And I think that's where you start to set the boundaries. Um, and boundaries are really good. They protect the person. And we'll get into boundaries in another one at some point, but it also brings people together. Even though you would think boundaries might keep people apart, it actually brings them together in a understanding what they need to do or the other person wants them to do.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it also helps the other person know have a little insight into you. You know what I mean? Like you set these boundaries, they understand what you expect and what you want out of like the relationship or how your viewpoints are. Because Ash and I have the same thing. Like sometimes there'll be something in the trash and I'll put like 5 or 6 things in there and she'll open it up once and be like, "Oh, this stinks. Can you take it out?" Yeah, that's fine. I'm not going to take it out because it doesn't bother me.
Right.
It's just a waste of a trash bag. But if it's bothering you, then it's not a waste of a trash bag to take it out.
Right. Right.
But
Yeah.
I mean, I think Ash and I used to do a lot of keeping score with each other in the negatives, but we've grown past that. I mean, we've gone through so much in the 12 years we've been together. It's insane that we're still together, but we make it work, and we um, somehow she loves me still. Um, I think she's a little nutty, but hey.
What do you think is the main thing that you guys did to overcome the scorekeeping?
Um, to tell you the truth, I think it like you said, it divided us, and it divided us so far we could tell that it had that we weren't as we were or as we even wanted to be at that stage in our relationship. Also, the kids help you a lot when it comes to patience and understanding someone else's viewpoint and things like that. So just I think it was after we had the kids, it was easier for her to say, "Could you do this?" or me to say, "Hey, you know, is this what you want or is this what you want?" It makes you have to be a little bit more fluid in yourself. You can't be have such a strict regimen. It's because I feel like when at first it or during that time it was like a immovable object being hit by an unstoppable force. We were both just so stubborn. Neither one of us wanted to give an inch because we thought that the other one would just take a mile. So it was
Right.
just one of those things that it was just like butting heads and like, no, this is the right way. This is the right way. No, this is. No, this is. So I mean, we have a lot more compromise now. I mean, even with something as simple as like the dishwasher. I don't like unloading it. She doesn't like loading it. It's perfect. I load the dishwasher, she unloads it. It's just little stuff like that that like opened up a big gateway, like coming to a compromise with little stuff like that opened and just kept going to bigger and bigger and bigger stuff. Like right now, I stay up late with the baby. Most of the time, the baby still sleeps, but I'm up just in case she gets up until, I mean, I stay up until like 12 or 1 and then go to bed. Um, but Ash never, like, I hear guys with not horror stories, but complaining about, oh, my wife expects me to get home and help take care of the kids and help do this and help do that. I'm just tired. Well, first of all, you had the kids too. So they are your responsibility. But I mean, I have days when I get home and I tell Ash, I'm like, I'm exhausted. I've had a rough day. And she's like, okay, I got the kids. Just relax. Don't worry. But if I can, like today, I got home and Ash needed a shower. She hadn't been able to get a shower all day. So I took Tully. I said, go take a shower. It's just little stuff like that. If she hadn't asked, and I'm coming full circle here, if she hadn't asked me to take Tully or told me that she didn't get a shower, that she wanted a shower and wasn't able to get one, then I would have never known. But she could have been like, oh, he didn't even ask if I showered today or if I got Tully or if I needed help. Like, it's just those little things that I think help us keep an even playing field, because we're not keeping score, because we both know that we are doing our best in our prospective roles in the relationship.
Yeah, I think what was really cool is one of the things that you said was, and it was a point that really sparked with me, was when you said the other person, one person was afraid if they gave an inch, the other person would take a mile. And I think that's from past experiences of things that have happened in their lives. And it doesn't just go away. And when it brought up a situation one of the times that at work, and one of the ladies that worked for us came up, and it was funny because I'd just given her what her responsibilities were. She'd been working with us for 3 or 4 months. And it's tough now for people, and we talked about this last time, Alex, for them to put their cell phone down, even if it's at work. And excuse me. So I walked in, I was like, did you, and she was on the phone, and I was like, have you done this yet? And she looked at me. This was one of my favorite lines of any time. She goes, if I did everything you want me to, I'd be busy all day.
What? She said that to you?
She said, but that's the mindset, right? It was
Right.
like, even though she had what she was supposed to do, we had set the boundaries. There's still times, and there's also negative boundaries, and not necessarily boundaries, but barriers, because they're immovable for some people, because they get to a certain point of when they've kept score so long, they just get tired of it. So then they start like, okay, I'm just going to leave the trash forever until they take it out. Right. And then just stuffing it in there, and then they just get more mad and more mad and more for days sometimes, when it could have been a 15-second pull it out, take it in, and just let go of it. So we get tested like that in relationships and in employment, friendships. Sometimes it's a place where it's a bad place to be when you're in that situation. Once that starts, the competition starts. It's not like in sports there's quarters. Right. It'd be like every 6 hours you just get a whistle blowing, you get a 15-minute
you get a break
to do another game plan, like right on the chalkboard. Okay, you're gonna go over here and do trash, I'm gonna go over here and have, I sometimes people talk about it, and I've heard this, people talk about it, other couples talking about this, and they laugh about it. And I ask, I said, if that happens, do you laugh at yourself about it? They get quiet. Like, no, it's not funny when it's us.
No, it's not me.
So, yeah, it's. I loved when you said that, because it is one of those things that I can understand people thinking, if I do this, or the repetitiveness of it, and not acknowledging the growth of somebody, they always do this or they always do that. We know how I am about those words.
Absolutes.
The absolutes are absolutely appalling. But when we get into the mindset, and in the energy work that I do, when you have that mindset, you can actually help create the situation. And if you've ever listened to some of the self-help gurus, they talk about
Ugh.
put inside your mind what you want and it shows up. And it isn't just positive stuff, right? It's
Right.
also negative stuff. So when you start changing the relationship from that to a competition, it's hard to stay positive sometimes. But
Yeah.
there's also things that you have to do to overcome it. And like you said, the biggest thing for you guys is communication,
Right.
is and being feeling safe enough to ask for what you need.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's not an easy thing because even no matter how much you love someone or get to know them, being vulnerable, I feel like is the problem. I don't have a problem asking for help because I'm asking somebody for help. I have a problem asking because the vulnerability and the fear of them thinking I'm a failure or that I can't do something or that I'm less of a person because I need help with this or I need help with that or um, it's just vulnerability. I feel like for me at least is a huge thing that is hard to get past, and that's something I still work with every day. Um, Even at work, asking for help. It's not the fact that I'm asking somebody for help. It's the fact that I'm worried about what that's going to open up, um, criticism wise and judging wise, um, which I try not to even worry about, but it's still like sometimes in the back of my mind because it was so ingrained in me that if I asked for help or if I asked a question or if I fail or if I didn't, I don't want to say failed because failed's such a strong term, but if I didn't succeed in the task that I had at hand, um, that just meant I was going to get ridiculed. I was going to get, um, you get worried about losing your job. You get worried about what rumors are going to start going around. It's just like all these things build up. And that's part of my anxiety that I deal with is dealing with that on a daily basis and making sure that I get past those barriers and that I don't see asking for help or asking for what I need as a sign of failure or vulnerability. It's just another phase of life. But like you said, it's like a boundary. Like sometimes you have to set them, even if they're uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's and thanks for opening up about that because it is something that I think that works with this because you're keeping score with the past,
Right.
right? So eh, when we're talking about things, and I'm one of the worst at asking for help, and when I do, people about pass out. But I've really done much better at it lately, and I didn't realize how much support I had until I did reach out. And I think that's again, that was me keeping score with the past because if I didn't do it again, something in me would say, you know, you can do this, just do it. But
Right.
it's not, it's so much more in actuality when you ask for help.
Right.
Right. So I was
Yeah.
doing some work on the deck and I asked my neighbor Kevin to come down. I was like, "Hey, can you come down and I need to help some help with picking these things up?" Because I mean, I could have done it probably 10 years ago. I would have done it, but it was one of those things where I didn't really want to do it. Right.
Right.
I needed some help, and he's a construction guy, so he comes down and we start doing it, and I'm watching him, and like he does this all the time,
Right.
and we were doing the deck screws or something like that. I can't remember what it was. Weird. And I just looked at him, and his like, it was so funny. It was such an epiphany. He had the screws in his like, had the belt on with the
Mm-hmm.
pockets. He had the screws in the left side, I think, and and I had him in my right, so I'd have to move move it to my other hand, grab a screw, put it down, put it down, put it down, grab it again, grab it. And I was like, I didn't know, like, it didn't make me feel foolish. It just made
No,
me feel like, man,
that's
I
how
just
I should
learned
be
something
doing
that's
it.
super, super easy, and watched like this guy that does it all the time do it. And I was just like, oh, okay. And it cuts the time down in half. And he is like,
Yeah.
he puts his pencil in the same spot all the time, and he does all this stuff. And I was like, because I'm always looking for the pencil. I lay it down here, there. So I watched him, and I didn't, again, in that relationship, I could have kept score and said, oh, dude, I'm doing this bad, I'm doing this bad, I'm doing this bad, he's doing
Right.
this good. That wasn't anything to how I felt. It was more like, dude, you just saved me hours.
Hours of work.
Hours of work.
You can go home
And
now. I don't need help anymore.
I got it now. I'm good. But it was just funny how simple something like that was. And then Jeff was here, and he was doing the same thing. And I just watched these guys that do this, because I don't do this. I guess
Right.
it's the same thing as if people come and watch me adjust or something.
Well, I have a similar story to that.
Oh,
So,
go ahead.
well, before I forget, so we have a thing called Traveler on an elevator, and it's like a flat piece, right? And then all the wires are in, and it's got this rubber shielding on it. But you
Mhm.
have to strip back the rubber shielding to get it through like conduit and trough and everything. Well, I was watching The Helpers one day, and I was like, "Why are you doing it like this?" And they're like, "This is how I was taught to do it." I was like, "Well, let me show you how I do it. I think it's easier. If you don't think it's easier, then just keep doing it this way. But this way is a lot like less hassle." And they're like, "Okay, whatever." So I showed them how to do it, and that by the time I didn't realize it, but by the time I had stripped to where I was supposed to strip and showed them the whole process. I turn around and all the elevator guys are just standing there like, that's how you do it? I was like, yeah. They're like, it took you 5 minutes. I was like, yeah. They're like, I've been doing it the complete opposite way, the completely different way. It's so much simpler that way. I was like, oh, okay. I don't know what to tell you, but
You're welcome.
I always listen to advice that's given to me, especially like when you're in an apprenticeship. That's like your whole job is to learn. So when I was in my apprenticeship, I was really lucky. I had a lot of really good mechanics that taught me a lot, but I took bits and pieces from each of those mechanics and started doing things like finding my own way of doing things. And I'd find one mechanic did something that was easier for me one way. And so I was like a meld of all these good mechanics, but I was lucky and to be able to learn from guys that actually cared about the trade and wanted to be there and wanted to teach me. A lot of kids didn't have that.
And I think was that the story?
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Oh, okay.
Endo.
Because you said, before I forget, I wanted to do this. So, and in that relationship with you and the, what'd you call them?
The
The
apprentices?
worker, the apprentices. So when you showed them that, right, you didn't go in and say, listen, this is the way you need to do this. You just presented an option. And I think the softness of that really helps people understand that you're not keeping score,
Right.
right? You're turning to more like the referee at that time. It's
Right.
just like, here, let me, I can show you this. This is how I do it. It's a little easier. I feel it's like it's easier, that kind of.
Right.
But if there was a bad relationship in there, and there was things that you'd tolerated or things that they hadn't listened to you, or you've kept giving advice that they didn't listen to or they didn't like, it would have not gone that well.
Right.
So, and I think that's where, in a lot of times in the more personal relationships, the keeping score and the lack of communication, it can never be resolved. It
Right.
just, I mean, it can be, but if things don't change, it can't be resolved because you're never going to equal it out. It'd be very difficult to
Right.
do that. Right. It's not like, somebody goes out and sweeps the porch off and they're like, that was the one thing that settles this. Right. We're back to even.
Right. Yeah. We're all tied up.
We're all tied up now. Bottom of the ninth. But so, but I like the way that you presented that to them, and the fact that there was some pride that you had in yourself when you turned around and saw the elevator, watching and
Right.
learning too. But
Well, it's
you're,
just nice to be acknowledged.
yeah, and that's segueing into how to help this keeping score. First of all, absolutely got to communicate, even if it's positive communication, even if it's repetitive, and understanding that these things don't get fixed a lot of times in one conversation,
Right.
right? But not so much what they're doing wrong, but what your needs are,
Exactly.
right? So if
What's that called? Me first speech or something like that? What is it called?
but if you came home and Ash didn't ask you, hey, could you take the baby so I can get a shower? I haven't had one. You would have never known. If she'd have harbored
Exactly.
some anger or anything, then that would have that would have started the scorekeeping, right? And if you zero it out every day, right? Talk about it at the end of the day and go back to zeros,
Right.
then
This is a new quarter.
that would also be an effective way of doing it. So you're communicating before the anger or before the buildup of the anger.
Right.
The other thing is actually honestly being happy for each other, right? And pointing out the good things. So if she wants you to take out the trash and she only talks about when you don't, that's not going to
Right.
motivate you to take out the trash. If she started talking, say, hey, thanks for taking out the trash, babe, that's going to motivate you to be the other way.
Right.
Right. When we get so deep in the scorekeeping, though, that's a difficult conversation because it's just everything's built up inside.
Yeah.
So,
It's funny that you like to use the trash analogy because I'll forget to take the trash out all the time, and I try to take it out at night when I get like before I go to bed. If I don't do that, I'll try to remember to get it in the morning. But sometimes she'll be like, "But she never says you forgot to take the trash out. She'll always say we forgot to take the trash out." So like it'll be like because usually she won't notice until the trash truck's coming that
right.
I didn't take it out. It's my fault. It's not her fault at all. But just the way she words it, we forgot to take the trash out. I'm always like, ugh, of course I did. But it's another one of those just like little things that she says that I never get mad or feel like she's blaming me. I just get like, oh, I gotta remember, like it makes me try to do better. It doesn't ever like make me angry that she's pointing out that I forgot the trash. But it's been a long road, and I don't want anybody listening to this to think that you and I are like don't keep score or don't do it. I'm sure there's plenty of people I keep score with. There's plenty of things that we do that are not do as we say, not as we do. Everybody tries to do their best, but obviously we're not perfect. But we also want to give everybody the tools to be as good as they can be.
Well, and us, right?
Exactly.
This is the whole learning, healing thing for us too. The other thing is, and it kind of goes with that, because if I think if somebody said we forgot to take out the trash and I knew it was my job, it might irk me.
Yeah. It
That might
doesn't
just
irk me
that
for
just
some
might
reason.
irk me. Well, that's because you guys have worked on it, right?
Well, and I
Now
think she also knows me, so she knows like
it
you're
softens it for you,
right.
right? Good. Yeah, so making the other person appreciated is another thing. And that's like, we just talked about that a little bit with, thanks for taking out the trash, or I was going to get sweeping the floor, and she was like, I was going to get to that, or she's sweeping, and you're saying, I was going to get to that. Thanks. It's
Right.
acknowledging that, right? And not going back the next night and saying, well, you didn't sweep the floor tonight, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
got to, if you stay in the positive, I think it's a good thing. And then to have good, clear boundaries. Um, and by boundaries, I mean, those are places that you set as, I don't want anybody to come past this.
Right.
So if it's a personal boundary, and somebody's telling an off-color joke or something, and you don't like that, then say something to them. But don't, you don't want to throw it in their face or embarrass them in front. This is a conversation that you can have afterwards, but you have to set your boundaries so the next time that they know. Because if
Right.
it doesn't, then they'll keep
Right.
doing it, and then you're going to keep getting more mad about it. And I think that's where those boundaries, and you can move boundaries in and out. Once they
Mhm.
become too close to you, or they get too close to your comfort zone, you'll put up a huge wall, which is what I call barrier, and it's totally different
Right.
because that's just like slamming into a brick wall kind of thing. But those are the things I think that would help, making sure you're happy for the other person. If they're doing something, you're like, wow, that's really great. It's not like you're always doing that,
Right.
right? So being positive, being upbeat on that, and redo your perception of things, because we perceive that job is yours, this job is mine. The perception doesn't have to be yours and mine, it's ours. And we
Right.
can have those things that we frequently do, but it doesn't mean we can't not do something. That makes sense. Good.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. All right. You got a call to action for today?
I
What do you
do
think?
actually. My birthday is Sunday,
Wait,
and for
what?
my call to action, I would love to have people share this with 25 people. And
For your birthday?
that'll be my birthday gift from everybody. So if we can have every person share it with 25 people, and they don't have to hold on to, if they, you know, if they listen to it or not, just share it with them. And I'll share it with 25 people, and the message is, I think, is so good. Our comments we're getting are so great.
Yeah.
Um, we could use more interactions from the people that are out there. We're here to help, and we're here to do what we can. If you have a subject you want to hear, let us know. But yeah, my call to action this week is share it with 25 people for my birthday, please.
Birthday. You gonna be what, 29? 30?
It's 26
26? Goodness, I'm
reversed.
37. How is this gonna work?
It's new math.
Oh, and just a very happy birthday to Aunt Rhonda on Friday. Also, hopefully this comes out Friday. I don't know. I went to do this. Oh, I'll talk about it later. Um, I don't. My call to action is to stop keeping score with yourself for one day. For one day, just start with one day. Try to just live in the moment. Or if you're gonna keep score, keep a positive score, like Dad said.
Make it constructive.
Yeah, just that's what I want you to do. I want you to write down everything good that happened that day. Keep score on everything good that happened. Nothing bad, not the bad stuff. Just keep score of the good.
And so remember, you are not broken, and you're not alone.